I'm back.
Welcome back into the second part of this live show with Matt Verderame. Sorry, we're just reacting to the news in which Aaron Rodgers has just been traded in the last couple of minutes. The joys of recording podcasts with NFL news on Draft Week. I won't ask you about Aaron Rodgers. We might come to it towards the back end. I was going to ask you about the Patriots, Matt, because they had Levinson last week for as part of the kind of 30 players that come in and are adjusted, and a lot of people feel they're just being brought in essentially to, I suppose, put their grade on them. Whenever a team wants to move up in that position, they know what the kind of value is. But it's an interesting season for Mac Jones, and all doesn't seem to be well on the outside looking in. But again, maybe that's just kind of the noise in which the Patriots want people to believe. Like, do you see this as a critical season for Mac Jones, where the Patriots will, like, just as similar to like maybe Zach Wilson, where if it's just not working, it's just not working, and we move on?
I think for Mac Jones, absolutely, it's a critical year. I mean, and not only for the reasons that we're looking at in terms of, New England move on, what would happen, but also, I mean, realistically speaking, now that Aaron Rodgers is with the Jets, that's official. Yeah, you got him, you got Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa played very well last year. Now, the injuries, of course, are the question that nobody has a real good answer for. But with that all being said, like if New England struggles this year because the quarterback play is not good, the offense is not good, that's going to stand out even more this season than in years past, because now you're going to have this whole division where everybody's playing well at quarterback, and New England fans, Patriots fans are going to go, hey, look, he's the problem. He is the issue. Now, do I think that's fair? No, maybe not. I mean, he hasn't exactly been given a bushel of weapons to deal with and to play with, but I think he's going to get this year. I think he's going to get a full 17-game run. But I also think it was instructive last year that, like, Bailey Zappi got real opportunities at times. If Bill Belichick was that in love with Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi would not have been seeing the field because Mac Jones had a bad quarter. Like, I don't care what Bill Belichick says publicly. So this is a huge year for Mac Jones. And if it doesn't work, I would think they'd probably decline his option, play out that fourth year, whether he's a starter or a backup, or maybe even trade him and move on. But yeah, there's a lot of pressure considering how good the division looks like it's going to be and all the rest of it. Mac Jones has got to play better. They got him Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't know that makes a huge difference since they lost Jacoby Myers. But they're going to have to improve on offense. And Mac Jones, he's going to have to be a focal point, or they're going to struggle, and he's going to get a lot of criticism, right or wrong.
Matt, it felt like the entire league, right, got obsessed with trying to stop Patrick Mahomes. So they come up with the Vic Fangio's too high shell. It's, ineffective, to put it mildly. And for the Chiefs, everything Andy Reid touches continues to turn to gold. So Brendan Daly, changes positions and ends up with ring number 5. They move off of Tyreek Hill. They still win a Super Bowl ring. Obviously, changes again this offseason with Eric Bieniemy moving on. In terms of where the Chiefs are at and what they might do this week, I mean, look, every year, certainly as long as Reid and Mahomes are there, they're going to start as favorites. But what are the areas you think they might look to fill?
I think for them, they need a receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster's gone, so they're going to have to figure that out, right? I mean, they really haven't added anybody. Richie James they brought in, but he's going to replace McCall Hardman. I think, reasonably speaking, they still need a top receiver. Now, whether they try to go get DeAndre Hopkins or not, I think that's very dependent upon whether Hopkins is basically willing to rip up his contract to a new contract, right? And I think that's true for a lot of teams around the league that are interested in Hopkins. I would also say that the Chiefs need help at right tackle. They brought in Jawan Taylor to replace Orlando Brown Jr., who they in both cases brought in from right tackle, going to move to the left side. Brett Veach has talked pretty openly about the fact that they drafted a tackle that Taylor would play right or left, that he's open either side, so it gives them a little flexibility in the draft. I think at 31, if a tackle that they really like falls to them, I think that might be the way they go. And then also the other position to watch is edge rusher. They drafted George Karlaftis last year. He played very well down the stretch, but they cut Frank Clark for cap reasons. Carlos Dunlap is still a free agent, as is Clark, by the way. They're both out on the market. The Chiefs need help there. The Chiefs did. Now, they signed Charles Omenihu, and Mike Danik can play inside and outside, but I think the Chiefs need to beef up the line a little bit more. Sneaky area to watch is defensive tackle. Chris Jones, they're working on an extension with him, but in case that doesn't get done, he's only got 1 year left. They don't have anybody else inside who's a long-term answer. So even if they were to retain Jones, which I think they will ultimately, it would give them a little bit of an insurance policy, but also somebody to play alongside of him. So look for the Chiefs to work on the D-line, look at tackle, and then I would say receiver. Those are the needs that the Chiefs kind of have to fill here over the next week or so.
Matt, over the course of the last 3 weeks, the Tennessee Titans have been a team that have been suggested as, I suppose, a live team that potentially could move up to get into the top 10 to secure the quarterback if they feel it's the right time to move away from Tannehill. Do you see it in that way? Do you think they'll rather, they'll sit at 11, take best player available, or, focus on a different position, depending on how the domino effect goes with the quarterbacks? Does it depend on really which one they're comfortable taking?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, the Titans are in a little bit of a rebuild here, right? I mean, they're shuffling out offensive linemen. Taylor Lewan and Ben Jones, not Ben Jones, Nate Davis are out. Tannehill's got a year left. Malik Willis did not look like he could step in and play anytime soon. When he played last year, he struggled mightily. And if Rand Carthon is looking at this thing realistically, like he's a first-year GM, so he's got some time. And the question is, do you try to build up the team around Tannehill right now and say, you know what? Look, we can live with a year where we go 7-10 or 8-9. And then if we have a good team, that's a great spot for a young quarterback to play next year. Or do you say, we're at 11th right now, and maybe we can trade up, and we don't plan on being this high in the draft again anytime soon. So that's kind of the question you have here. But I think if you're the Titans, I'd try to go get a quarterback. I'm just a big believer, and you have nothing until you have your quarterback. You could have all the other stuff in the world. If you don't have a quarterback, you're not going to win big. You're not. It doesn't matter what else you have around that guy. So, if I'm the Titans, I'm absolutely calling up Monty Ossenfort and the Cardinals at 3 and saying, look, what's it going to take? That the only caveat being, if they don't like these quarterbacks, then forget it. Then go out and just draft the best guys, on your board. But if they like one of these guys, go ahead and do it.
I suppose, look, the NFC South, we know that Bryce Young is very likely, 99 times out of 100, that's probably what the Panthers are going to do. You look around the rest of the division, the Saints don't seem to be getting, a whole lot of coverage this offseason. Given where the other teams are and the Panthers, have a brand new coaching staff, could Derek Carr win a division?
It could. Look, I think both South divisions you'll look at and go, okay, look, in the AFC South, Jacksonville is the leader in the clubhouse, right? But the NFC South, my God, throw a dart, right? Who knows? I think the Saints probably have the strongest roster because they have Carr, but I don't know. I'm not overly in love with any of those rosters, So I think really both of the South divisions you'll look at and go, all right, Jacksonville is definitely the favorite in the AFC South. They have Lawrence. They made the playoffs last year. They took a step. But if Bryce Young goes to Carolina and he plays really well, they could be interesting. They could be compelling. I love Arthur Smith. I think he's a very good head coach. The Falcons have outperformed their talent, right? And they've gotten more talent this offseason. And they have a top 10 pick. They have an 8th overall pick. I don't love the Bucs. The Bucs are the one team I think probably rebuilding there. But yeah, those two divisions, I like the Jags. But you have a lot of question marks for those other 7 teams. You look at and go, hey, it could be okay. It could be pretty good. Or, they're probably going to struggle. Those are probably the 2 weakest divisions in the entire league, honestly.
Matt, final one for me. Bijan Robinson is such an intriguing player coming into this first round on Thursday. And we've seen teams, you touched on earlier around Saquon Barkley and running backs, and I suppose the value and how you can recycle running backs in this league. Are we going to see a situation where a team goes high and just, decides, let's move away from the general consensus that we shouldn't take a running back? And where do you see him? Do you see him within the first 12, maybe in there on the 15 mark?
I think with Robinson, I think he's going to end up being in the top 12. My mock, I had him 21st. I don't think he gets much lower than that at all, but it's just a question of how much does the devaluation of the running back position hurt him, right? I think that's the main thing. I think everybody agrees he's a top 6-7 player in this draft. He's an incredible talent out of Texas. The question is just going to become, does Atlanta take him? Which my colleague at SI Albert Breer is saying everybody loves him in Atlanta. Now, my thing is, does Atlanta need a running back? I mean, is that their big need right now? But if they feel he could be Adrian Peterson, then sure, take him, but he better be. If you're drafting in the top 10, you're taking a running back. Like, if you're drafting in the top 10, it's because you're not good or you fleeced some team for a pick like Seattle and Detroit did. I just think I think that common sense would tell you he would slide out of that top 10 and get a little further down the board, but everything you're hearing in the league says that won't be the case. So mark me down for he'll be a top 12 pick, even though I think value-wise he probably should be more toward like 20.
I suppose last question, Matt, and I would caught between, because I love your passion on things, caught between asking you about the Rams, but no, I won't. I'll ask you about, because you did a piece on 5 sleepers in the draft, and Tank Dell is one of the great names. Forget about the ability on the field, just in terms of names, what a fantastic name. But of those 5, which of those do you think has the potential to have the biggest impact? I get it's all dependent on finding the right landing spot, but if they do end up in the right landing spot, Matt.
You know what? I think players in the draft, I think it's a good way to end this. Players in the draft, so much of it is where do you end up? What scheme do you go to? What coaching staff do you end up with? Like, I always get asked the question because people know I grew up a Chiefs fan, like with Mahomes. Like, would he have been as good if he ended up in Chicago? It's like, probably not, but he still would have been tremendous, But, like, he ended up with the perfect team. He ended up with Kelsey and Hill and Andy Reid and all these other pieces. Though I still think he would have been a great player with the Bears. Yeah. Would he have been as good? Probably not. Like, would Joe Montana have been as good without Bill Walsh? No, he probably wouldn't have been. If he had ended up with some team that sucked, like, he probably wouldn't have been as good. But he ended up with Bill Walsh. Like, that's how history is made. That's the way the world works. It's just, I think, look, a guy like a Tank Dell is a perfect example. He is very diminutive. You have to know how to use him correctly in an offense. If you get some coach who doesn't know how to use him, who just sticks him in the slot and goes, all right, man, good luck to you, it's probably not going to work out well. But if you get a coach who moves him all over the formations, creative with him, there's no telling where it could go.
Matt, we're very thankful for your time. I think you're the second person ever on the show, second guest where you've had to take a call during the recording. The other person was Ian Rappaport, so that's the circle of trust. Now you've now landed in with the Irish NFL show. But we genuinely, the week that's in it, it's a busy period with the draft. We really appreciate you giving up your time to join us and run through all the questions today. So we're very thankful.
No problem.